Did you know that the typical CEO of a company listed on the S&P 500 earned $18.8 million in 2022? Surely, you must think that being a CEO of the top 500 companies in the world means having an extraordinary salary. But what if I told you that some of these CEOs got paid these mega salaries despite having a stupendously horrible performance in 2022? Or what if I told you that shareholder votes were despite most of them voting against CEO pay packages? In fact, the average CEO pay is up 21% compared to 2022. And this comes at a time with the worst performance in the stock market since 2008. Today, we'll explore the top 10 most overpaid CEO salaries of 2022, according to As You Sow, a nonprofit organization that promotes environmental and social corporate responsibility. Now, just to make something clear, we're not focusing on the biggest salaries, but on the top 10 CEOs that were the most overpaid according to As You Sow's 3 criteria. That is, CEO pay compared to shareholder returns, votes against CEO pay packages, and the ratio of CEO pay to median worker pay. Starting with the number 10 spot on our list, we have one of the most famous companies in the world, Apple, led by CEO Tim Cook. Everyone knows that Apple is one of the most successful companies in the world, but even Apple is not immune to the woes of the global economy. Tim Cook took home a whopping $99.4 million, which was similar to his pay for 2021. But this might be the last time he's going to take home such a big lump sum. It turns out that only 64% of Apple's compensation committee approved the CEO's pay, down from 95% in 2020. Now, Tim Cook did not take this news lightly and requested his pay to be cut 40%. And the committee approved it. It seems that the Apple CEO agrees that he was being overpaid, perhaps. Next up on our list is a newer CEO, and not as popular in the media as their predecessor. That's Amazon's relatively newer CEO as of mid-2021, Andy Jassy. At Amazon, the CEO to worker pay ratio reached 6,474 to 1, with CEO Andy Jassy making $212.7 million in total compensation, while the median worker received $32,855, according to the As You Sow report. Compared to Apple, Tim Cook made only 1,177 times the average Apple employee. Surprisingly, only $175,000 of his compensation package was actually derived from Jassy's salary as CEO, while he received $211.9 million in stock when he was promoted last July. Talk about a sign-on bonus. Moving away from tech and going into another profitable industry, banking. Our next most overpaid CEO, taking the number 8 spot, is James Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase. Now, James has been the CEO of JP Morgan since 2005 and was the highest paid U.S. bank CEO in 2021. However, investors did not seem too keen about this. In May 2022, shareholders of the bank rejected an options bonus for Dimon following his take-home pay of $84.4 million in 2021, which included a $52.6 million special award. Looks like the CEO will be taking home the same base pay in 2023 as he did in the previous year, and on top of that, not get any special awards going forward. And it's no wonder when you consider that JP Morgan's median salary is somewhere around the $75,000 range. This CEO's pay is about 364 times more than these well-paid workers. These changes came about as JP Morgan's profits tumbled by nearly a quarter, while its shares declined about 17% at the end of 2022. As You Sow seems to have put James Dimon and Tim Cook in the same boat. Next on the list in the number 7 spot is a CEO that's also relatively new and probably someone you've never heard of, unless maybe you're working in the casino industry. Robert Goldstein is a longtime executive at the Las Vegas Sands, who was named chairman and CEO in January 2021, following the death of founder and billionaire Sheldon Adelson. Under his leadership, the Las Vegas Sands Corporation ended its tenure in the Las Vegas Strip the same year Goldstein was appointed CEO, by selling 3 extremely famous properties. Those were the Venetian, the Palazzo, and the Sands Expo Convention Center. This sale comes as Las Vegas Sands doubles down on its investments in Asia. It seems that Goldstein's $31.2 million was related to selling these properties over $6 billion. However, like Tim Cook and James Dimon, the Sands shareholders were not too happy with this level of compensation for the newly appointed CEO. Sands Corp reported that votes representing only 34% of shares opposed the CEO compensation package. But As You Sow determined that votes representing an overwhelming 97% of institutional shares were against Goldstein's compensation. The report argues institutional investors are a much truer reflection of shareholder opinions. To put this into more context, the median annual salary for a Las Vegas Sands employee is $35,879. That means for every dollar earned by a typical worker that year, Goldstein received $866. Now that's quite a hefty amount for someone so new to the position, don't you think? Well, up until now, we've been looking at CEOs or the CEO's companies that we're familiar with. But next up on our list is the CEO of ServiceNow, William McDermott, taking up the 6th spot. ServiceNow is a software company that provides cloud computing services to help companies manage digital workflows. In plain English, they focus on creating a unified platform for large IT departments and even HR. McDermott's 2020 compensation package was just over $25 million. But due to the unprecedented growth during the pandemic, ServiceNow's 2021 year-end results saw a total revenue of $4.52 billion, up 31% over the prior year. And with that, the CEO's pay also saw an increase of 560%, totaling a compensation package worth $165 million. Forget promotions, this CEO got the biggest raise so far in our list. You could say that he deserved it by increasing the revenue by over a quarter, but how much of that increase came naturally from pandemic remote work demands? Shareholders seem to agree too. 65% of shareholders voted against McDermott's compensation package. Coming into the number 5 spot of our top 10 overpaid CEOs, we've got Glenn Fogel, the CEO of Booking Holdings. Now, you may not have heard of Glenn or Booking Holdings, but you must know one of these sites which they own. These are Booking.com, Priceline.com, Kayak.com, and Agoda.com. What comes as a surprise is that Glenn Fogel came 5th in this list with a total compensation of $54 million. This pales vastly in comparison to Expedia's CEO Peter Kern, who had a handsome compensation of $296 million. Peter Kern, however, only ranked 29th in the As You Sow's list. Now, this is likely due to the shareholders voting a whopping 68% against the compensation package for the Booking CEO. In contrast, the Expedia CEO received a mere 6% opposition in his compensation package. Now, we can also look at Expedia's median salary of $102,000 versus Booking's, which is about half at $58,000. Overall, we can safely assume that given the shareholders' votes and median wages at Booking Holdings, this CEO deserves a much smaller pay. Coming very close to our top 3, but not quite there, is Patrick Gelsinger, the CEO of Intel, coming in at the number 4 spot. Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger has one of the highest reported total compensation packages of $178.6 million. Intel's CEO pay is significantly higher compared to other CEOs in the same industry, with a compensation package 4 times the industry average, exceeding the 75th percentile. However, the company's performance is below the 75th percentile of its peer group. This indicates a significant imbalance between the CEO's pay and the company's performance. Even more so, Intel's CEO pay package depends on significant taxpayer subsidies from the US and Europe to support their reshoring of chip manufacturing, which will either make or break the company. Yeah, it's no wonder Pat Gelsinger has been on the As You Sow's list of the 100 most overpaid CEOs for the last 5 years. Okay, we're now at our top 3 spots from the list. These next 3 CEOs are the most deserving to be at the top of the list, and the number 1 spot may surprise you. Similar to our dear CEO of the Las Vegas Sands, the number 4 spot goes to another casino mogul, Jay Snowden from Penn National Gaming. In case you didn't know, Penn National Gaming owns and operates several well-known casinos and racetracks in the US, including the Hollywood Casino, the Tropicana Las Vegas Casino, and its most famous horse racetrack, the Penn National Racecourse. Now, unlike Goldstein, there were no sales of casinos to oversee a CEO to boost Snowden's pay. So then, why is he so high up on the list? Looking at the As You Sow list, we can easily see that the CEO to worker pay ratio stands out by an incredible amount. Snowden's 2022 compensation clocked in at $65.9 million, whereas the median worker only took home $34,000. That means he's paid 1,942 times the median worker. In other words, for every dollar earned by an average worker in 2022, Snowden received $1,942. I think this fact alone makes him deserving of being in the top 3 in this list. Now, if you thought it was hard to one-up the previous CEO, this next CEO takes it up to the next level. Not only does this CEO have an even wider CEO-to-worker pay disparity, but this CEO also let its company's stock price drop by over a quarter. The honor of almost coming first on the list of the top 100 most overpaid CEOs goes to Fabrizio Freda, the CEO of Estée Lauder. Estée Lauder is the only cosmetics company to appear in the top 10 of the most overpaid CEOs. Fabrizio received a total compensation in 2022 valued at $66 million, while the median worker only received $33,500, resulting in a pay ratio disparity of 1,965 to 1. Although this is a higher disparity than our previous CEO on our list, this is only one of the factors why this CEO achieved the number 2 spot. As it turns out, Estée Lauder had a terrible year where its stock fell 33% from its peak at the end of 2021. Their beauty industry peers saw revenues increase in 2022, while Estée Lauder's revenue saw a decline of 7.75%. So as the CEO of a top beauty brand, he got his spot for having the 5th highest pay ratio disparity and having a terrible company performance in 2022. This next CEO takes the cake, and it's absolutely a no-brainer how this CEO achieved the number 1 spot. You won't believe how this CEO's compensation package was valued for the tasks he oversaw. But before we jump into that number 1 spot, consider clicking that like button for this video. Now, for every like, each CEO on our list will need to give one of their employees a raise. And finally, topping the list of the number 1 most overpaid CEO of 2022 is David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery. Zaslav received a jaw-dropping $246 million in 2022. This gave this CEO the 2nd highest CEO-to-pay disparity across the 100 CEOs who made the list, coming in second only to Amazon's Andy Jassy. That means for every dollar made by the median employee, the CEO made $2,972, and that's with a very cool $83,000 median wage. Now, you may be surprised to hear that Zaslav's pay directly relates to how he oversaw the corporate coupling that led to the creation of Warner Bros. Discovery in April 2022. To put into perspective, this $43 billion merger deal created a content behemoth that combined Warner's HBO, CNN, and Warner Bros. Film Studio with Discovery's lifestyle and reality fare. The hope was for this merger to create a media powerhouse that could compete with the other behemoths that are dominating your daily evenings, Netflix and Disney. But some things have not yet gone according to plan. Warner Bros. Discovery ditched plans to turn 2 streaming services, HBO Max and Discovery Plus, into one. It'll instead continue offering these services individually. Sounds like they're still working things out. However, one thing we can agree on is that David Zaslav still has a lot of work ahead of him after the completed merger. Perhaps his $247 million compensation package should have come in after the company reached a more stable level of success. Now, as you've seen in our top 10 list today, the issue of CEO pay is gaining attention not only from the public, but also from investors who are starting to question the pay gap. As workers fight for greater pay and job opportunities, the mantra that CEOs are paid based on their performance is becoming hollow. With growing disconnect between pay and performance, shareholders are becoming increasingly dissatisfied with the status quo, signaling a need to change in the way CEO compensation is determined. But what do you think about these 10 CEO pay packages? Which one do you think is the most overpaid? Let us know in the comments. For more news and stories on CEOs, click this video next.